Good afternoon. It's Joyful Hermit. Make sure I have my sound up. Check the interior. I'm going to share with you what I read from this very old, rare book on angels. I took notes on it. There was much more said. I had to find it online used years ago, and it goes way back to the point where you're right on the verge of where the verbalized information was being passed on verbally, but that was the mode of keeping track of things then, and it was done very accurately. So this goes way back, this information does, and I'm mainly going to explain the 9 choirs of angels. Read it from you and hope that little critters stay calm. So, the lowest hierarchy of angels are angels, just plain angels they're called. Ministering spirits, guardian angels in this group, and those particularly chosen to be sent as messengers from time to time to private individuals as personal favors. So now our guardian angels, from early artwork, is even shown, it is believed that the guardian angels are given to us while we're yet in the womb. So, and from my experience, they go with us all through life, and from what I experienced with my dad, through seeing him in various phases, through progression until he's in heaven. So that was the last time I saw him with his guardian angel, was when he was in fullness of light and being ushered into heaven. He had already been off earth a good 6 months, about 6 months. So that's my only reference point and little things I've read, but there's conflicting information out there, of course. The archangels are in the lowest hierarchy, but they're up from the angels. There's a greater degree of dignity in the ministry they exercise. Care of personages they are given, such as kings, dukes, pontiffs, and rulers. Agents benefiting, affecting public at large, and more grave matters. So archangels are sent to help world leaders, for example. King Charles in England, our president. Please, we can pray and ask the archangels to help our aged president, and all government officials, mayors, and people in elected offices who are in cause of governing us. And I'm thinking, of course, as far as it's be a little lower level, but now my pain doctor would not at all go for angels or a guardian angel. Very anti-Catholic. And wouldn't have this information in front of him or access to it. As a Protestant of 44 years, I never knew of these things. And I knew of Mary only mostly at Christmas time. And that's when we brought out our little statues in our nativity sets. But, of course, Catholics get really blasted for having statues at other times. So it's an irony. We've got to sort of chuckle it off and not take it too much to heart. But I should be asking my guardian angel to go to my pain doctor's guardian angel and help him understand he's not helping pain patients by getting sort of stubborn at times when they need a different pain medication. And they've asked twice, and that bothered him. Only supposed to leave one message a week. And I thought he had just forgotten. I was just trying to remind. But I did mention that I'm not fond of their new system, that it seemed cold and removed, which it does. It's very impersonal. So that, I think, must have pricked him, or his staff and him. So that's my fault. When you're a pain patient in this climate of a lot of bias against, and you understand that by the grace of God that you have a pain doctor, and the pain doctor recognizes that you have something like arachnoiditis, even though he doesn't know that much about it. He knows enough about it to know it's severe pain, but I think he forgets. So we have to rely on God and on angels a lot more. I keep forgetting because I get distracted by the temporal. And I'd gotten too distracted with someone who had gotten more involved in my life than I needed or should have had. A friend, a wonderful person, but too much writing back and forth, and is not interested in the spiritual, and made that clear. So I'm not going to drop the person, but I explained I have to focus more on my spiritual life and on what God wants of me now. So I'm going to send my guardian angel to help my pain doctor's guardian angel. We have them whether we believe in them or not. But if we don't believe in them and if we don't utilize them, we're not going to benefit as much. But the archangels, we can ask to, and they do get involved in our lives at times. I had a Michael come when I had that special duty that I was shown the problem with this one priest, a serious problem. And I was told, love to suffer and suffer to love. All these demons came in. I was shown that they were young. That was the problem with this priest. He had affection and addiction to internet porn, as it turned out, and to prepubescent and pubescent boys. So with one in particular that he had been grooming over a few years. So I was shown all this, and it was true. He admitted it to me. I tried working with him in forbearance, kept tabs constantly there, oftentimes at night even, keeping tabs because his little house was just right across the parking lot. And noting when the young boy, they would be outside talking, but keep track of things. I was keeping an eye on things until it became obvious. Joan of Arc came. It became obvious that it was time, and my dad also came during Mass and said, you must deal with this now. So then I had to report it and go through that process that needed to be done. I would have done it sooner, but I had a couple of priests that were friends of his say, no, don't. He wasn't really acting on it. Yes, he was acting on it. You don't mess around with that kind of thing. So I learned that lesson. But so the archangel, St. Michael, came at that point in time because it was an important mission, an important assignment. So principalities are still in the lowest hierarchy. But they are at the highest level of the lowest, or the first hierarchy. I guess you would call it, or I guess, yeah. If you think of first, second, third, like that, imagine that. First being the lowest. Principalities. Principalities are angels that have authority over other angels and archangels. They are intermediaries through whom divine will is given and is intimated. Immediate care of more important states, kingdoms, princes, bishops, and are main players in momentous conflicts under Michael. So Michael is the archangel involved with major conflicts and battles. But the principalities are under Michael, even though he is an archangel. So bishops are princes, kingdoms, states. If you live in the United States, your state. If you live on a country island or a country, like a European country, an African nation, be like a state or a country. Well, a kingdom, a state, that would be principalities are the ones that are over those territories and over the major rulers, the kingdoms. Not the kings, though. They are more in charge of the kingdom itself. And remember that they are main players in major conflicts, like with Ukraine. So we could be asking and praying for the principalities to help resolve all fighting everywhere in the world, all of the conflicts, the Israeli conflict, all of them, the Ukrainian. There's many going on. So many we're not even really that much aware. It's amazing how much news space Hollywood takes up. And people in other countries are so fascinated by these movie stars too. So that's something we can be praying about. Get our priorities in order. Then comes the second hierarchy. And within the second hierarchy, we have the powers, the virtues, and the dominations. So the powers are planning and directing campaign to frustrate designs of demonic warfare against the human race. That's their work. They plan and direct campaigns to frustrate the designs of demonic warfare against the human race. And they give execution of it to 3 inferior choirs. The 3 inferior choirs to its grade. A command and constraint of demons who are forced to submit to the powers. But the powers execute this and give execution over to the principalities, the archangels, and the angels to actually go in to command and constrain the demons who are forced to submit then. So that's important to remember in our own personal lives if we're having family conflict with others, conflict with the temporal world in some way. Call upon the principalities, the archangels, and the angels. Now, in my particular cases, I think maybe with the medical doctor, that might be upgraded to archangel status because of position and power and control over many people who are ill, and with any medical doctor. Or with priests, well, that's with bishops. That's the principalities with the bishops. But I think the archangels I could call upon. With my family, the angels, ministering spirits, and for all of my children's guardian angels. I have been slothful in this, negligent in focus. I have allowed the temporal to distract me and pain to distract me. So today I let the pain go too long, trying to hold off on the negative medicine that is harmful to the kidneys. So I got in trouble and had to take even more to get it under control. But I see even now, with keeping my spiritual wherewithal, not only for my benefit, but for the benefit of those for whom I pray, so that I can be thinking clearly and know who to call upon to help them. These ministering spirits, the angels, and which angels I should specifically ask and thank them and have faith that they are out doing what they are tasked to do. And we can call upon the powers then, if we have evil going on in our lives, evil other people. And I can't think other than I think my son has allowed some evil, and this person who coerced a man, she's sort of like an Eve figure, who tempted and kept talking this man figure, Adam figure, to do something unconscionable that I was upset about, that has harmed a family member's career and finances. Temporarily, I think. But that's a case where it wasn't done lovingly or justly. A just way to have done it would have been to talk to the family member. Say, I am going to do this. Or do you mind? Or if you mind, I'm still going to talk to this person and ask him to come work with me and not you anymore. To give the person a chance then to go and plead that person's cause. At least make it fair. And then let the man decide which person he was going to work with. And that would have been more just, and not with the treachery involved, the behind the scenes that went on for a few months of this same, like, at least I think if a marriage partner is going to cheat, be open and honest and say, and at least the other person knows and has an opportunity to make choices, or to say, no, let's work this out, or what do I need to do that you are cheating on me or wanting to cheat. Of course, that would rarely happen, because a lot of the intrigue of doing evil is the secrecy of it, the covert aspect. And people know they're doing wrong, or they would speak up and say, do you mind? Or, I've been thinking about this, and it's a free world, and I want to do this. I want to take away the person that you're with. If it's totally above board, then we should feel comfortable being honest and upright, above board about it. So, and if not, then we who are victims and see the evil in other people's lives going on should be calling upon the powers. The powers then will go into action, planning and directing the campaigns against the evil that is being perpetuated against the human race. It could be one person or many with the powers. So, and they will then turn over, give a lot of the execution to the angels, the archangels, and the principalities to go into the actual action. So then we have the virtues in the second hierarchy. The virtues work signs and miracles for God, whatever is outside regular order of events established by providence. It can be government, preservation of human race, may call for extraordinary effect, even if humans aren't aware. The virtues provide the signs and miracles for us. They are whatever is outside regular order of events. My spiritual ecstasy during Mass was an action of virtues, of the virtues. The angels called virtues, and approved by the Holy Spirit. But it was a sign, a wonder worked for God that was established by providence, meant to demonstrate the beauty and the glory of Mass, and that the Mass is the stairway to heaven, and at the consecration is the portal into the spiritual realms. So that's the work of the virtues, is to deal with these things, to work the signs and miracles for God. And they are still angels, so they're virtues, but they're called virtues, but they are a form. They are in the 9 choirs of angels. Dominations are the third in the second hierarchy. They are called dominations. They are supreme over angels of all the inferior choirs. They have high control over their ministry, direct them in discharge of their offices. They are loftier in the order of intelligences than lower orders. Those are dominations. We can sort of think of the word itself. They dominate. They dominate. They are the top level of the second hierarchy of angels. So they are the 6th up. I'll have to go in this order. I'll keep it straight. The first, angels, archangels, principalities. Then into this next grouping, the second hierarchy, the powers, the virtues. And the virtues work the signs and miracles for God. The dominations are supreme over angels of all the inferior choirs. They have high control over their ministry, direct them in the discharge of their offices. And they are loftier. The dominations are loftier. So we're starting to see how in the order of creation, God has everything structured perfectly and beautifully, so that it all operates in a cohesion of love and brilliance, of the highest intelligence that we cannot even fathom or begin to attain to in our current human race state. And in fact, we aren't even that aware of all this going on around us. Some of us more than others, but I've been most negligent. It's so easy to let the temporal and the temporal troubles and our ailments and feeling sick and our responsibilities in the temporal world to get out of hand. That's why, a note to self, being more organized in here, because God is a God of organization, as we see. Everything he has organized in all creation to a high and perfect, smooth operation, that I would have less distraction if I could get things finished in here, and I have things that I want to sell and use that money for donations. So may the angels help me with this, and I know they will. I might need some miracles of health to have the energy to do what is needed. Or the ministering spirits of the angels, and especially my guardian angel, to manage in here better myself, to function better. The third hierarchy is the highest. It is the court of the heavenly king. It's the court of the heavenly king, with the thrones forever in his presence, singing his praises, not occupied by governance of the world, not commonly sent as messengers to men. Their relationship is how they stand to God himself, truly sublime yet obscure. So, this is the function of the third and highest hierarchy. And within that hierarchy, we have 3 levels. Notice the use of 3. God has always considered 3 as a holy trinity of effect. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. You see the number 3 and the action of 3 often in Scripture. It has the triangle. The symbol for the third eye is the triangle. And that also, the 3 points, it is eternity. Well, of course, eternity also is the infinity, can also be eternal. But the triangle also is ever flowing. It's joined. It's cohesive. So we have here, and I've had visions in the past that were filled with amazing geometrics, incredible, beautiful, third, maybe even fourth dimension and other dimensional, beyond what I can describe, of geometrics that were opaque, or they were not static. They were not, you could see through them. They were moving. They were multi-dimensional and ethereal, but yet all of this incredible geometric out in the universe. So it's just amazing what God has created and what is ahead of us to start to understand. And at some point, after we're out of our temporal realm, we will see more and more and exist amidst this great glory that God has created that goes beyond our temporal fathoming. And it's truly wonderful. Praise be to God. So thrones, their relationship to God and union with Him as thrones express an habitual rather than actual perfection. It's habitual. It's an aptitude and fitness of the dwelling of God and His throne, and a priority and detachment enough to, what is that word? I guess it says to He as thrones, where I think it is to that as thrones, whereon God sits, whence His majesty shines forth, rules, passes judgment on His creatures. I'll reread that. The thrones, the first level of this third hierarchy, that third hierarchy has to do with God Himself, and with and in God Himself. So it has to do with His relationship to God and union with Him. The thrones express an habitual rather than an actual perfection. Their aptitude and fitness is of the dwelling of God and His throne. God dwells on His throne. And the thrones, those angels, have their aptitude and fitness focused on dealing with that dwelling of God and His throne, and a priority and a detachment enough to be as thrones whereon God sits, whence His majesty shines forth, rules, passes judgment on His creatures. Next comes the cherubim. They are the second highest in the third hierarchy. The cherubim are a transcendent knowledge of God. They have that transcendent knowledge of God, but not lacking in divine love. Cherubim are full of eyes. We have description of them in Ezekiel. They are not lacking in divine love under God, and they are mentioned most frequently in Scripture. The cherubim are. Their wings are outstretched, protecting God on his throne. Understand all three of these final, highest hierarchy of angels all have to do with God on his throne. The highest level of angels are the seraphim. They are highest of all holy angels, bright with radiance that most reflects the splendor of God. They are exalted ones and are consumed with fire. They burn with love. Their effects are to enlighten and cleanse. It was the seraphim that touched Isaiah's lips and burned. It says here, the seraphim are the refining flame of love. So this love that presupposes knowledge. So I'm thinking of this mystic, Elizabeth Kindelman, who passed away in 1985, Hungarian mystic, who later in life was given the task, the responsibility, chosen by Mary, to write out all this information on what Mary called the flame of love, the living flame of love, which is going to consume the world at some point, and we should pray for that. And Mary herself then, when was asked, maybe, I don't know, I haven't read the book, but I've done some research on it now. And Mary herself said, when asked, what is the flame of love? She says, Jesus, my son, Jesus Christ, my son, is the flame of love. So, the seraphim are tasked with refining the flame of love, keeping the flame of love before us always. Christ is the flame of love. Love, and of course, refining him. I don't know if that would be the correct wordage of it. It would be exalting and perpetuating the flame of love. Christ as the flame of love. Love presupposes knowledge. Knowledge begets love. And more ardent and intense love, the more profound is knowledge from which it springs. But knowledge does not imply love, but there can be love begot of knowledge. So, we can receive love of knowledge, but knowledge does not imply love. Love comes from God. Love is God. God is pure love. So we receive our knowledge of love through God. It doesn't come from quote-unquote knowledge. That's what this is explaining here. And the seraphim, I'm personally going to start asking the seraphim, the holy seraphim, to please increase my pure love. I know I'm very lacking in it. And in my videos and in my comments, I'm being very, very honest. I'm not ever going to give you pretext that I am a better person than what I am. I hadn't prayed to be healed of my kidney things. I was hoping Jesus would come for me. It has been hard since September of 2012, when I had the mystical marriage and the banquet following. And then Jesus would not consummate the marriage. He said, not yet. I had to wait. I had to be strong. He also told me to ignore the priests and the parishioners who were being horribly misbehaving toward me, shunning and running me out, not wanting me there, telling me I couldn't be there, mocking what God was trying to give them as a gift of the understanding more of the Mass, and hurting me, physically injuring me. So I didn't know how to handle it. He says, ignore them. Pay no attention to them. Well, I guess I really haven't. Been thinking about maybe going back and talking to this African priest that's now at this parish. Maybe call and talk with him. But I, at this point, though, physically can't really be going and sitting through Mass. My spine wouldn't sustain it, especially not on enough pain meds. So, I mean, it is a miracle that I don't have the pain during that ecstasy, sitting like that, like a dead, like a log, like a dead corpse. But it's after, and I have to be responsible because the pain gets to a point that it quickly goes into suicide mode, where the mind loses control. I'm just being honest. I cannot say this to the pain doctor or his staff. The nurse, a lovely nurse, told me, don't ever say that word. We are obligated then to call it in, and you will be in a big mess. I would probably be sectioned, or who knows, I wouldn't be given pain meds that I need. That's the problem, you know, the pain gets out of control. So I have to keep it under control. And I'm doing that with medication that's hard on my kidneys now that they're damaged. It wasn't before, but once your kidneys are damaged, that changes a lot of what you can eat and what medicines you can take and what vitamins and minerals and things. So I honestly was hoping that Jesus would come for me, that my time of waiting was over. But it's obviously not yet. My appetite is increasing, but a good viewer sent me information on wisdom from a couple of saints from the 6th century. Look in the comments section under the last video, I think it is. Excellent information that these two saints had on how we handle with medical issues. Basically, leave it all up to God, but we do what we're to do to keep going, which I have been doing. I have been doing that, but I hadn't prayed to please heal me. I did yesterday finally admitted that, yes, that's in my vow of suffering, that I will be willing to suffer, even if it is prolonging my life to suffer, and worse suffering than ever. So yes, I vowed that, and I'm going to uphold my vow. And I will do whatever God wills, and I will do whatever is within my ability here to manage. And that includes then having to take enough pain meds so that I don't get to that point where I move into that suicide mode, where you lose control of your mind. Yes, God would have mercy on me. He knows what's going on. He knows I don't want to kill myself. But pain can get that bad, sad to say. And you lose control of your mental faculties. You go nuts and think and do what you wouldn't do. That's why one point earlier on and after the divorce, police wanted me to get a gun. They knew, felt very sure who was behind doing things to me and the children. Wanted me to get a gun for protection. I didn't, because when I get in terrible pain and lose it, especially when I had the spinal headaches, which I haven't had nearly since the pump was put in 3 years ago. That helped somehow, the spinal headaches. But The head pain gets to the point all you think about is shooting your head off. It's terrible. Your mind goes into that mode. Do anything to get the head off. And I know some people might think, oh no, I'd be able to handle that. I wouldn't do that. I'd find some means. It gets to the point you just have to cast yourself upon the Lord and make your environment as safe as possible. And of course, the pain, I would think in those terms, but it would be very hard for me to get up out of bed. My body shuts down when I have pain sieges. I wouldn't have to go to the bathroom for 24 to 36 hours. And it was a miracle, really. Thank the angels. They provided that miracle. Through what was that? Was that the powers who authorize the miracles? Yes. No, wait, let's see. The virtues. So that my body would just go into a shutdown mode of normalcy. And because I was in too much pain to crawl to the bathroom. Eventually I'd be able to crawl to the bathroom. But I didn't have to go to the bathroom. My system shut down. God did that. I would hope, but He's given me these pain meds. Not the best ones, but I'm trusting that God is okay with it because He knows my options. So anyway, I'm just being honest with the situation that I'm in, and then this person said what Isaac the Syrian wrote, about how it is a Christian's duty to take care of ourselves. We shouldn't do anything that's going to hasten our death. That goes against God's will. And we have to trust that He will help us get through the suffering, our final suffering. Meditate on the 4 last things, one of which is death and getting through death. And just trust that we will get through, and pray for those who don't understand and will someday then, and they will feel great remorse. I know my pain doctor isn't normally like this, so he will feel remorse at some point. He's very Christian. Jesus will explain. It's just, I think they get inundated with pain patients. And there are those who come day in and day out who don't really need the medicine. And they have to sift through all those people. And they get violent. I didn't realize till my last appointment they were telling me how violent some of them get. Even old people get vicious and can have a lot of energy all of a sudden. So it's not easy, but the seraphim are so important to us. Well, all these, the thrones, the cherubim, and the seraphim. But the seraphim, being the highest of all the holy angels, and who are burning with love, they effectively and essentially are burning with love. And their effects are to enlighten and cleanse us. So let's pray for this. Ask the holy seraphim to enlighten and cleanse us, and to burn within us, to cause our hearts to burn with love for God, for the Trinity, and for others, to burn with love for others, and in compassion for others. Finally, today, I started to have an intensity of concern for those who harmed my family member, who pulled the skullduggery. And I know that God is going to uplift the family member. It's going to be all right. God allowed it. God has something good. The good rise. And the family members handled it very professionally, very calmly and professionally. I didn't so much. I don't like injustice. That's so unnecessary. And from people who know better. But, hey, I've done things too. So and I've known better. So I understand that, but then I understand the remorse that's going to hit these people. And I started to have this tremendous sorrow for them and concern and love today. So I think the seraphim, that's who puts that in us, is that burning love. Love presupposes knowledge, as I mentioned before. Knowledge begets love. And more ardent and intense love, the more profound is knowledge from which it springs. So, knowledge springs from love. And it's a good thing to have knowledge, spiritual knowledge, especially since that's where we're all headed. But, of course, temporal knowledge is fine and good, but spiritual knowledge is supreme and is what will help us to love. So I have written here that the cherubim are more in charge of knowledge, the seraphim in charge of love, and extraordinary love, intensity, and tenderness. I'm sure we've all had, at times, a sense of intense, tender love for an infant, for a wounded animal, for our little pets that God gives us, for our children, for our families, for our dying or sick parents. Well, for something in nature that all of a sudden we are inflamed with love for and appreciation. That's the seraphim lighting a flame in us, lighting the spark. And when we feel that, let us thank the seraphim. And when we have knowledge of love, we start understanding love better. Just as we have started to understand now, thanks to what the Holy Spirit, probably the seraphim involved, and the cherubim, giving Catherine of Genoa knowledge and understanding of love, of God, that God is pure love, and all that we learned about that, pure love, and how important it is. So they all helped her with that to share with us out of love. She wrote it all down, or well, told it to others who wrote it down. The third hierarchy of the angels is solely occupied with God Himself and His sovereign majesty. The ministering angels is versus executing the will of God in promise of interests of humans. Let me say that better. The ministering angels, which are in the lower order, the first hierarchy, they execute the will of God. And they do so on behalf of God for the interests of humans, for our welfare, for our benefit. The attending, adoring angels of the Most High are the largest numbers of angels. And yet all angels enjoy the beatific vision. Some minister so as to be exterior, ones that we might be given the privilege of seeing at times. Some of the lower angels appear in human form. We've heard accounts of that. Some of you may have had accounts, or we may have encountered an angel without recognizing that it was an angel, but sort of wondered, who was that stranger? And how did they disappear? I mentioned the two that came to that Saturday morning Mass with message for me. to validate my interior stigmata. And then when I wanted to have them over to my home, I was going to serve them a late breakfast and all. I was like, whoa, I guess who was that? Was that Abraham who, fix the food. Angels are here. I was all excited. I wanted to entertain them and be grateful to them and show hospitality. When I realized that I was having an unusual occurrence of people that touched me. I mean, they were definitely corporeal in human form. But when I asked them, oh, no, they panicked. No, we've got to leave. We can't get locked in here. Well, of course they could. But that's what they told me, why they had to leave. And they just opened the doors and out they were. I followed and they just disappeared. I didn't see them. I didn't see their car, nothing. Even though they had told me that, one was from Africa, the other one from the Philippines, Philippines, I'm sure. And that they lived outside this other city. And I thought, this is curious, why would they show up here this morning? And then I did call the priest who had that mass and another person. Yes, they saw them there, had never seen them before, thought it was strange, and wondered who they were. But how they opened because the doors are locked after, or they were at the time, how they just got right through. And so those were angels that I know that I was in the presence of. And they would have been of the first level, the lowest order of angels in the first hierarchy. And those are the ones that come. They can be exterior to us, and they do exterior things. They're messengers and minister to us. They are, and the other angels, though, going from definitely the third hierarchy, are in attendance more. And the same somewhat with the second hierarchy. The second hierarchy are in attendance. They plan, they handle matters, but they have the first hierarchy angels do the work, do the effect, the works. Except, let's see, the virtues work signs and miracles of God outside of normal order, normal order of existence. And with that, though, is really different than the first hierarchy of angels. So even then, the virtues who provide these miracles, that is still more of an attending kind of an angel. And then the third hierarchy, the thrones, the cherubim, and the seraphim, they have these supernal type of attending God and his throne, God on his throne. That of knowledge, of love, a flame of love, and of being in attendance of God on his throne. And that's the highest form, the highest hierarchy, and the highest three forms of angels. And they are in attendance. They are contemplative types of angels, it says here. They have an outward function. They are supernal. And all these other angels, though, do have their tasks. And some are more ministering angels, doing actual works, helping us. When we're ill, they can come minister to us without us seeing them. That's still the angels. And then it's the interior, invisible supernal works of our hearts burning with love, our hearts expanding with love. St. Philip Neri, his heart burned. There are other ones who had their hearts were burning within them, and enlarged. His heart enlarged so much because he was touched by the love, the seraphim love of burning love, that Philip Neri's actual chest chamber enlarged. And in fact, they removed his heart after he died. They saw his rib cage was all bent out of shape. Ribs had been broken, but his heart was enormous, enormous. And that's the miracle came from the virtues who performed the miracles and the signs and wonders. But that burning love, that ethereal burning love, came from the seraphim. And the knowledge we gain of love comes from the cherubim. And then the thrones adore and take care of God. Take care isn't quite the right word. It's their relationship and union with God are the thrones, on God on his throne. So I just find this wonderfully fascinating and true and helpful, and at some point in time when we're on the other side, we will be among angels. And I had notes here that I had forgotten, but I wrote, it would have been, this says January 28th here, talks about the state I had at Mass, how I connected with a greater understanding. I had since, up to months until now, been begging God to take it away and praying, and one time he did, pretty much. Not totally, but I thought, oh, it's going to leave. And Reverend Monsignor was pleased because he started telling me it was most inappropriate. Inappropriate. It wasn't standing during the reading of the gospel. So, anyway, let's see. I was getting a greater understanding of the reality of being shut out from the temporal Catholic world as a positive thing, that I had been too attached to it. And that God was introducing me through the portal at the consecration during Mass into the mystical world of his church, into the spiritual world. And then I had been reading also, and I'm going to try to find those notes to go over with you, Bernard of Clairvaux's Book of Love, Understanding of Love, his four degrees of love. And the angels, the third degree of love, or maybe it goes three degrees of love, I think it is. Yes, 3 degrees of love. No, there is a 4th degree that Bernard writes of. Anyway, they parallel the angels' choirs and functions and the hierarchies of the angels. Love does. It all coincides. It was amazing to see this grand connection between the hierarchies of angels and love. As wrote on February 1st, reading about angels is very helpful in valuing more my vocation. The more I am accepting and at peace, the better able to love others, love self, love God in himself. One lecture I guess I had seen points out 2 words as scope of our warfare: dependence, attitude before our Creator. We share this with the angels. The angels have a dependence on God, and we do too. We should. And the sinner before the Savior. We are sanctified in grace before the Holy Spirit. It seemed in recollection that all matters were being referred to God, being penitent, being aware of things from God's perspective, one's own and the world's sin, to see that, to see our own sin and the world's sin, to have this opening of seeing the rebellion and the pain, the shortcomings, so that love of creatures can go out to love of Him who loved us first. Bring to Him our willingness to suffer the results of unlove. Bring to God our unwillingness to suffer the results of unlove. And I'm reminded that's why God is having these odd circumstances of my medical circumstances right now. I have a very kind and compassionate pain doctor, and of unable to get a specialist, and of two of my children, the one now not wanting anything to do with me. Her husband hasn't responded, and that's not good. And it's not loving, but I know they love me in their own way. They aren't handling any of this, and they can't handle me. And so to understand this and to bring to God, I'm bringing to God my willingness to suffer the results of unlove. Because I can already see, I have seen it, even it's still hard to take, I have seen that God is allowing all of this. Whereas in the past, I haven't always seen it so soon. And I would struggle then with it. And I have to remember that for the family member. It can be harder with people we love than when we take it. It's harder for someone to take it when someone else is being mistreated and unloved, and they don't necessarily understand at the level we do yet, or they're given the gift. I think this family member's been given tremendous gifts in this regard, handled it better than me. Well, I don't know how it was at the beginning. I found out really late on what was going on. So, but then to come to love about it and to be willing to suffer the pain of it on behalf of the person who's suffering it. So it's all good stuff. I wrote this, and I don't even remember so much in my life. I should probably be doing more journaling again. It just gets to be so much to write. At Mass, I was embraced and asked to be. At Mass, I was embraced and asked to be, and I asked to be surrounded and embraced by the Most Holy Trinity. I saw the three around me totally, and I am embraced and protected, and Mary's mantle was placed over me, as she seemed to be above, like the Queen of Angels, and angels all about the Trinity. St. Patrick looks like I said, St. Patrick leaked his very soul to the Trinity. It is wise and necessary to do so in one form or another. For us to leak or leaked, that's the word. Looks like leaked. To leak our soul, to give it fully, to give our soul fully to the Trinity. And then the Da, that's what I called my spiritual director. He was Irish, my Irish Da, has written what Marmion says about the state of union. Seems to be so, yet I will continue to pray at Mass as the confessor, that Reverend Monsignor suggests, that if God wills, I overcome the state. But if it is of God and He wills, if it is a union, albeit light, with the beloved, and not some feint of the devil, then I, a mortal, would not overcome him. The Da concludes that receiving the Eucharist is not necessary, for the union is already there, he had in quotes in his letter. Again, at Mass today, there was no need perceived, but mouth did salivate at the time of communion in peace and joy. This was early. This was like in the first several months as it was deepening. I wasn't yet in the deepest form of it yet. So let's see if there's anything else regarding angels that I wrote in here on January 28th. Oh, it says, I would like to write about the functions of angels as inspiration for humans, of our missions. Also to explain more of the mystical Catholic world and the temporal Catholic world. But perhaps all this is the Holy Spirit's way of helping me accept my vocation. And I must not worry or go so long in isolation if contact would benefit. But I think it was the reality of the shutout from the temporal Catholic world, which I can see is a good thing if considering the functions of the thrones, cherubim and seraphim. To see their functions, the thrones, the cherubim and the seraphim, their entire function and reason God created them was to adore, intend, and be love in God himself in his throne, on God's throne. That's their whole function, is adoration, ministering, and love in God's love as God is in his throne. And the purity of love, the flame of love, the knowledge of love, it's all about love in the whole third hierarchy. Love of God, God on his throne. So in our sense, if God has it happen to us that we are increasingly, our mission, like I'm a hermit, and I had to understand he didn't want me as a diocese hermit, everybody knowing who I was and taking on other names and calling myself something different or sister this or that, and didn't want me wearing a habit at all. I stood out. I learned that lesson. And people assumed I had all this experience and knowledge and would come and pour out their hearts, and strangers would, trusting me just because I wore a habit. Imagine if I'd been a jerk. And that was way back. And I fortunately was a loving and prayerful person, but I didn't have the level of counsel and spiritual understanding that they assumed just because of my outer appearance. That stunned me. That was a reason right there that I wanted that habit off. I did not want anyone thinking highly of me or things that just weren't there just because of a Middle Ages looking habit that did not at all keep me hidden. Hermits are to be hidden from the eyes of humankind, not noticed. Here I am noticed to you, but the only thing I think is I'm anonymous. You know nothing else. And that it's a means for me to share, but I do wonder about it if this is what God wants. But in my ministry, though, and in my vocation, what is my purpose? Is it diddling with the temporal world and fussing around about medicine and doctors and my kidneys or whatever? To the extent I got so fed up in that 9 days of researching, and just, Oh, I just missed God so much. Just God, God, God in his throne. I realize I missed him, and the Trinity and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and having to do all this other and go to these appointments and get lab work done, and it was just a hassle. And that's partly why I really didn't pray, for that to extend, but whatever. So I am wondering, I do think that maybe God, now that I'm rereading this, it's amazing when you read something you haven't read in a long time, but that this is more the level of my purpose, is to be loving God in himself, adoring him on his throne. I don't see him. I don't see the throne. I can in my imagination, of course. We all can. But to ask the seraphim to give me a burning flame of love throughout my whole body, mind, heart, and soul for God and for all humankind, even for the ones that are exasperating, as I am to others. Oh, yes, I am. Very exasperating. There's reasons why my son-in-law isn't writing back, and my daughter didn't want anything to do with me. It's their perspective, and they're right. Memories or whatever from childhood, I don't know what it is. Tried to find out, but not going to be told, so I've got to bear it. That's a cross to bear, but not be consumed with it. I've got a calling to this flame of love, and to knowledge of love, more knowledge of love, to understand, and then to love the son-in-law and the daughter and my son who hasn't spoken to me in a year, to love them with the living flame of love, with Jesus's love, with God who is pure love, that and to adore God in his throne, and with the seraphim and the thrones and the cherubim. Not worry about going back to the parish. No, not at this point. Not with my body as it is. No, I'm realizing that's why cause people upset too, and thinking I'm being rude, sleeping through mass or something. Just we gotta let go sometimes, and sort of go with the angels, move up the hierarchy, don't we? If we start to understand it and see that it also is good and will cover everything then. And as my spiritual dad said way back, you're already in union. So you don't need to have the tangible host. And it is the weirdest thing, because he feeds me. Jesus feeds me. And I'm still very, very imperfect, but that was a gift with the ecstasies over all those years that I persevered and took the injuries and prayed for those people, and I really prayed for Reverend Monsignor so much, and Bishop. I cried and cried, and so they just didn't understand. And it would be hard, because look at me. I mean, there's no reason why it should have been somebody far more worthy or important or further along. Not a convert, for pity's sakes. So, who had the ecstasies? But I did. And that's the way it went. So, read that. Just seeing the parallels of the angels in our lives, and hope that you've enjoyed this. Sorry I got off onto more personal aspects, but that's sort of how I'm putting it together for me, and hope you put it together for you. I am still very, very human and imperfect, and thank you for your forbearance. God bless His real presence in us, and let us take this knowledge and a living flame of love, this burning love, and the ministry and purpose of the thrones, those three top levels of angels, the thrones, the cherubim, and the seraphim, and pray to be illumined, and elevated by them, burned, have all of what needs to be burned out of us, burned out by the love of the seraphim, that burning love. Have it, and have the cherubim illuminate us. All those eyes of the cherubim, and all the burn, the seraphim are just flame. So, and then the thrones, I don't really have I think in Ezekiel we can get a better idea. The wings outstretched and everything. So, anyway, enjoy. It's a long one again. Sorry about that, but it is fascinating to me. And much rather be thinking and talking about these things than, oh, woe is me and my pain. Who cares?